Did you ever believe, deep in your heart, that you were doing the right thing, only to look back years later and feel the heavy ache of regret quietly pressing on your chest? It's a silent sorrow many people carry as they grow older, a belief that aging naturally brings with it more sadness, more regrets, more things to grieve than to celebrate. But what if I told you that this isn't an absolute truth? That many of the sources of this emotional heaviness aren't the direct result of simply getting older, but rather the accumulation of small, avoidable choices, beliefs, and behaviors that quietly chip away at your joy and peace. You see, aging in and of itself is not the villain. The real culprits are often invisible to us until the damage is done. They are bad habits, unhealthy mindsets, or unspoken assumptions that seep into our lives slowly and stay far too long. Most people don't even realize these quiet patterns have taken root. They assume this must be how life is meant to feel now. That discomfort, emotional fatigue, and spiritual emptiness are simply part of the aging process. But here's something important I want you to know. It doesn't have to be this way. You're not stuck. You're not broken. And you certainly do not have to live out your later years in quiet frustration, emotional numbness, or regret. In fact, this chapter of your life holds a powerful opportunity to reflect, release, and renew. In the coming pages, we'll explore 5 of the most common, but often overlooked, mistakes that older adults make. Mistakes that slowly but surely pull life into a smaller, more burdensome place. These aren't physical mistakes. They are wounds of the heart, habits of the mind, and patterns of the spirit. The good news is, these are all things you can begin changing, starting today. This reflection is crafted with genuine care for individuals between the ages of 55 and 80 who long to feel emotionally freer, stronger, and more at peace in their day-to-day lives. If that resonates with you, then trust me when I say, you are in exactly the right place. I invite you to read all the way through, because the final mistake we'll explore is one so subtle, yet so destructive, that it often goes unnoticed, while quietly robbing people of joy they didn't even know they were missing. Let's begin with mistake number 1, holding on to bitterness. One of the most common traps older adults fall into, often without any intention or awareness, is the habit of holding on to bitterness. This bitterness can stem from a wide range of past experiences, an unresolved betrayal, a family conflict that never healed, disappointments in how life unfolded, or the lingering weight of unspoken words. These emotional wounds, if not acknowledged and gently addressed, can calcify into something much heavier, resentment. There's a saying that bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to get sick. It perfectly captures the silent self-destruction that bitterness causes. It doesn't resolve the past. It doesn't heal the hurt. All it does is make your present heavier, colder, and harder to enjoy. Bitterness doesn't enter the heart loudly. It slips in quietly. It shows up in small ways. When you replay the same painful memory over and over again, when your chest tightens just at the mention of someone's name, when you feel inexplicably angry at your children or siblings because their life choices don't match your hopes. Over time, it becomes a low-grade emotional fever that never breaks. Here's the heartbreaking part. After age 60, many people have more time on their hands, but they don't always have more people to talk to. This combination of silence and solitude creates the perfect echo chamber where bitterness thrives. You may not even notice it happening. You just begin to feel like life is shrinking, that joy is harder to access, that peace seems distant, even when things are objectively fine. The truth is, when your world becomes smaller, it's easier for your own thoughts to trap you. And if those thoughts are filled with bitterness, then so too is your experience of daily life. Even when surrounded by kind, well-meaning people, a bitter heart cannot feel fully connected. People can sense it too. Emotional distance shows. Tension is felt. Even if others don't know the backstory, they feel the guardedness, the sharpness, the sadness. Over time, this drives people away. And the more isolated you become, the deeper the bitterness sets in. It becomes a self-perpetuating cycle. I remember meeting a man named Frank. He was 78 years old and hadn't spoken to his brother in over 30 years. The conflict that caused their estrangement had started over something so small that even Frank couldn't quite recall the full details anymore. But the resentment had grown. It had fermented over time. And now, when asked why he hadn't reached out, Frank simply said, "At this point, I wouldn't even know what to say." That one decision, unreconciled and unhealed, cast a long shadow over his later years. It didn't have to end that way. Letting go of bitterness doesn't mean pretending the hurt never happened. It means choosing peace over pain. It means acknowledging that yes, you were hurt, but refusing to let that hurt define the remainder of your life. It means saying, "This no longer gets to control how I feel." And when you begin to let go, even just a little, something miraculous begins to happen. Your spirit feels lighter. Your laughter feels freer. Sometimes, even relationships that once seemed irreparable begin to mend in ways you never thought possible. You can't change the past, but you can change your relationship to it. And that shift can make all the difference between living with bitterness or rediscovering joy. Mistake number 2, ignoring physical decline. As we continue our journey of reflection, we arrive at the second major mistake that many seniors unintentionally make, ignoring the early signs of physical decline. This one is particularly tricky because it touches on pride, fear, and vulnerability all at once. No one wants to admit they're slowing down. No one enjoys realizing that something that once came easily now feels like a challenge. Whether it's struggling to stand from a chair, feeling unsteady on stairs, or simply noticing that walks now leave you breathless, these signs are easy to dismiss. "I'm just tired today," we tell ourselves. It's probably nothing. But often, these small aches, these whispered discomforts, are your body's way of waving a red flag. It's not being dramatic. It's trying to protect you. Ignoring these warnings doesn't delay decline. It accelerates it. The cost of that avoidance isn't just physical pain. It's often the gradual loss of freedom and independence. Why is this so common? For one, many older adults have spent decades being strong, being the rock for their family, their workplace, their community. To admit weakness feels like betrayal, to themselves and to the image they've built. But strength doesn't mean denial. True strength lies in adaptability, in knowing when to rest, when to seek support, and when to pivot, so you can keep enjoying life on your own terms. Another reason this mistake is so persistent is fear. Devices like canes, walkers, or braces are often seen as symbols of decline. But in truth, they're tools of empowerment, giving you stability, preventing falls, and helping you stay active longer. Avoiding them often leads to bigger issues, injuries that sideline you completely. Take the story of Gerald, a 74-year-old who dismissed his balance issues for years. He laughed off his daughter's concerns, refused to see a doctor, and insisted, "I'm not that old yet." Then one day, he slipped in the shower. The fall broke his hip, required surgery, and led to months of painful rehabilitation. During that time, he lost muscle, lost confidence, and lost his independence, all because of a decision to ignore what his body had been trying to tell him for years. Acknowledging physical change is not surrendering to aging. It's learning how to age smart. Daily stretching, regular checkups, strength training, hydration, rest. These aren't luxuries. They are necessities if you want to live a full, vibrant life. Aging well isn't about being as fast or strong as you were at 40. It's about honoring your body as it is today, listening to its needs, and doing what you can to keep moving forward. Not just physically, but emotionally too. Because misery isn't just caused by pain. It's caused by the frustration of pretending you're okay when you're not. By respecting your body, you reclaim something priceless: control. And from control comes confidence. And from confidence comes joy. Let's not trade these gifts for pride or fear. Mistake number 3, isolating themselves from others. There's a deeply human instinct that often arises as people grow older, a pull towards solitude. For some, this is peaceful and necessary, a time of reflection. But for many, that solitude begins to stretch into isolation. What starts as quiet time becomes loneliness. And this brings us to the third mistake, isolating oneself from others. It's not always intentional. Sometimes it's just easier. The effort to go out, to make plans, to call someone back. It can feel like too much. Maybe you've lost friends to time, distance, or death. Maybe you no longer feel understood by younger generations. Or maybe the people who once filled your calendar are now too busy with lives of their own. All of this creates a space, a silence that begins to expand until it fills your days. But here's the truth. We are not meant to live disconnected lives. Humans thrive in community. Our nervous systems are wired to feel safer, calmer, and more joyful when we are around others who see us, hear us, and care for us. Social isolation isn't just emotionally painful, it's physically damaging. Studies have shown that chronic loneliness can be as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It raises the risk of dementia, depression, heart disease, and even early death. Let that sink in. Choosing to remain isolated, or not making the effort to reconnect, isn't just a quiet personal decision. It has serious consequences. And yet, the solution doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to throw a party or join every club in town. Sometimes it's about the small acts, calling someone just to say hello, inviting a neighbor for tea, joining a local walking group, or simply sitting in a public park where other people are present. I once met a woman named Evelyn, 82 years old, who had not left her house in nearly 2 years. Her children lived out. Mistake number 4. Resisting change. One of the quietest, yet most damaging mistakes that many older adults make is resisting change. Not just the big, obvious changes like retirement or relocation, but the subtle, everyday shifts that require flexibility of mind and heart. You see, as we grow older, it's natural to crave the comfort of the familiar. We build routines that feel safe. We cling to traditions that remind us of happier, more vibrant times. We remember how things used to be. And sometimes, we convince ourselves that the past was always better than the present could ever be. But here's the truth. Nostalgia is a beautiful liar. It often smooths over the rough edges of memory, painting the past with a brush that leaves out the struggle, the stress, and the complexities we once couldn't wait to escape. When we resist change, we aren't just holding on to what's good. We're often holding ourselves back from what's next. Change is not the enemy. Change is life continuing to move. And while some changes come with grief, such as the loss of a spouse, the ending of a career, or the shifting dynamics of family, others offer powerful opportunities for renewal. But only if we are willing to open the door and let those opportunities in. Resisting change often shows up in subtle ways. Maybe it's refusing to learn how to use a smartphone, even when it could help you connect with grandchildren. Maybe it's avoiding new experiences because you're afraid of being embarrassed. Or maybe it's clinging so tightly to a past identity, like being the provider, the caregiver, the decision maker, that you feel lost when those roles evolve or fade away. Let's be honest. Change can be uncomfortable. It asks you to let go of control. It challenges your ego. It forces you to admit, I don't know how to do this. But hidden inside that discomfort is a chance to grow. And growth does not stop at 60. It doesn't stop at 70. In fact, some of the most meaningful growth in life happens in the later chapters, because it's no longer about proving yourself. It's about freeing yourself. Take the story of Anita, a 69-year-old woman who spent decades hosting elaborate family holidays. She was the glue that held everyone together. But as her children grew, moved away, and started their own families, fewer people came home for the holidays. One year, no one could make it. Anita felt devastated, forgotten. But after sitting in that pain, she did something remarkable. She signed up for a solo seniors volunteer group that served Christmas meals to the homeless. That year, instead of mourning what was lost, she found purpose in what was possible. And you know what? Her heart opened wider than it had in years. Change invites us to reimagine ourselves, to be a beginner again, to try new things, meet new people, and explore parts of ourselves we never knew existed. When we stop resisting change, we stop clinging to versions of life that no longer fit. And in doing so, we make space for new joy to enter. Remember this, flexibility is strength. A tree that cannot bend in the wind is the one that snaps. But a tree that sways, no matter how tall, no matter how old, remains rooted, alive, and reaching for the sun. One of the most profound realizations that comes with age is that time, something we once thought of as infinite, is now something we feel moving more deliberately, more clearly. Each sunrise feels a bit more precious. Every phone call from a loved one, every quiet morning with a warm cup of tea, carries more weight. And yet, many seniors fall into the trap of living without intention, not because they don't care, but because they assume that the most meaningful parts of life are already behind them, that the time for making plans, setting goals, and seeking new purpose is over. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Living without intention often looks like going through the motions. Waking up, watching TV for hours, maybe running a few errands, maybe attending a social event if it's convenient, and then going to bed wondering where the day went. It's a passive existence, and while there's nothing inherently wrong with rest or routine, a life without intention slowly begins to feel meaningless. Days blur together. Energy declines, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Living with intention means you still wake up with a sense of purpose. It doesn't have to be grand or world-changing. Maybe your intention for the day is to connect with someone you love. Maybe it's to create something, a journal entry, a painting, a small garden. Maybe it's to learn something new, help someone else, or simply experience a moment of beauty with full awareness. The size of the goal is irrelevant. What matters is that you are awake to your own life. Intention acts like an internal compass. It gives direction to your energy, clarity to your thoughts, and meaning to your actions. Without it, even joy feels hollow because it's not rooted in awareness. With it, even small things, like preparing a meal, folding laundry, or feeding birds in the yard, can feel sacred. Consider George, a 76-year-old retired teacher who fell into depression after leaving the classroom. He missed the structure, the students, the feeling of being needed. For months, he drifted. Then one day, he bought a notebook and began writing short stories based on the life lessons he had taught over the years. At first, no one read them, but eventually, he shared them with a local library, and they started a Wisdom Wednesdays program featuring his work. George had found intention again, not by returning to his past role, but by reframing his purpose in the present. Intentional living also invites reflection. It asks, what do I value now? What lights me up? Who do I want to be in this stage of life? These are not questions with one-time answers. They evolve as we do. The danger is in assuming that you've already answered them once, and that's enough. The truth is, every season of life deserves fresh intention. Even in physical limitations or emotional pain, intention can transform how we experience our days. A walk may become a meditation. A conversation may become an act of healing. And simply sitting in sunlight can become a form of worship. When we live with intention, we reclaim the authorship of our own story, even in the final chapters. Mistake number 6. Failing to forgive themselves. Perhaps one of the most invisible burdens many older adults carry is the weight of their own regret. Unlike grief or sorrow, which others can often see and comfort, you rarely hear someone speak aloud the phrase, "I just can't forgive myself." Yet it echoes silently in so many hearts. It hides behind sighs, behind old photographs, behind stories that trail off into silence. It shows up in the moments when you're alone and your mind replays that one decision you wish you'd made differently, the relationship you didn't mend, the child you wish you'd understood better, the opportunities you let slip away, the things you said or didn't say before someone was gone. Failing to forgive yourself is a slow erosion of the spirit. It chips away at your ability to enjoy the present because a part of you feels like you don't deserve to. It whispers cruel lies. You messed up. You wasted time. You hurt people. You should have known better. But forgiveness, real, life-giving forgiveness, must be offered to ourselves just as much as to others. Without it, true peace remains out of reach. What many people don't realize is that self-forgiveness is not about forgetting or excusing what happened. It's about releasing the need to punish yourself forever. It's about understanding that the person you were back then did the best they could with what they knew, with who they were, with what they had. We are all, at every age, imperfect students of life. It takes immense courage to face your own past and say, "Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I have regrets. But I am still worthy of joy, love, and peace." That is the beginning of healing. That is the moment when the chains of regret begin to loosen. Think of Eileen, an 82-year-old woman who carried guilt for decades after putting her mother in a nursing home. She did it because she was overwhelmed, raising her own children, working full-time, trying to keep everyone afloat. But her mother passed away within a year, and Eileen never stopped blaming herself. For 40 years, she held on to that pain. It wasn't until she attended a grief and healing group that she shared her story aloud. When others embraced her, cried with her, and told her it was okay to let go, something shifted. For the first time in decades, she gave herself permission to say, "I did what I thought was right. I didn't abandon her. I was human." That moment didn't erase her memory, but it gave her back her peace. The truth is, none of us are the same people we were 10, 20, or 50 years ago. We've grown. We've learned. We've softened. So why do we hold past versions of ourselves to today's standards? If you can extend grace to others, your children, your friends, your loved ones, you can also extend that same grace to yourself. And remember, self-forgiveness doesn't mean you're ignoring consequences or avoiding accountability. It means you're choosing healing over punishment. It means you're choosing to live the rest of your life, not chained to shame, but anchored in compassion. Because here's something powerful. When you forgive yourself, you model something beautiful to others. You show your children, your grandchildren, and your peers that growth doesn't stop. That mercy isn't just a religious or philosophical concept. It's something real, something living, something necessary. Forgiving yourself is an act of spiritual maturity. It's not selfish. It's sacred, and it allows your heart to finally rest in the present, instead of living trapped in yesterday. Life is not a straight line. It is a winding, twisting, unpredictable road, filled with peaks of joy, valleys of loss, and countless turns we never saw coming. For those who have reached the later chapters of that journey, it's easy to look back and see only the mistakes, the regrets, the missed chances, the pain that never got fully resolved. But here's something many forget. The fact that you are still here, still breathing, still reading this, is proof that your story is not over. The mistakes we make, whether in our youth, our middle years, or even in our 70s and beyond, do not define the totality of who we are. They are only pages, not the whole book. And even now, in this moment, you have the power to turn the page. Somewhere along the way, society began treating old age like an ending, a slow fading out. But age is not the end. It is a season, a harvest, a moment rich with reflection, wisdom, and potential. You are not less important because your pace is slowed. You are not irrelevant because technology moved ahead or culture changed. You are not too old to be heard, to be seen, to be loved. What matters now is how you choose to show up for your own life. Not yesterday's life, not the one that got away, but the one that is still yours right now. If you've recognized yourself in any of the mistakes we've explored, bitterness, isolation, ignoring health, resisting change, drifting without intention, carrying unforgiveness, or believing you're too late, know this: awareness is the first step to transformation. No one reaches old age without scars, but the deepest scars often become the most beautiful stories of healing, if we allow them to. So today, make a decision, a quiet one, if that's all you have energy for, or a bold one, if your heart feels ready. But make a decision to stop surviving your days and start living them again. Pick up the phone and reconnect with someone you've lost touch with. Apologize where you need to, and forgive, even if it's only inside your own heart. Let go of outdated routines and try something new. A class, a community, a new daily walk route. Set a small goal for yourself, not to impress anyone, just to remind yourself that you still can. Write down 3 things every morning you're grateful for. Train your heart to see what still is, not just what was lost. And most importantly, don't do it alone. Reach out. Share your fears, your joys, your hopes, your lessons. Let others learn from your story. Let them sit at your feet and listen. And in doing so, remind yourself that your voice still matters. Because it does. You matter. You are not forgotten. You are not finished. You are not a mistake. You are still becoming. So go gently forward, with grace in your heart and purpose in your steps. Because the best part of the story, it might still be ahead.